do with these results from Nextracker right after the bell, the solar technology play that helps solar panels move with the sun, maximize their energy output, or to protect them during bad weather. Here's a stock that had been red hot earlier in the year before selling off hard in March and April, along with virtually every other growth stock. But when Nextracker reported after the close today, it delivered another excellent quarter. We're talking a healthy revenue beat with much better than expected earnings and cash flow, a real blowout. I thought the guidance for the company was conservative. Let's take a close look at the quarter. I'm checking with Dan Shugar. He's a.k.a. Shug, they like to call him, the founder and CEO of Nextracker, to get a better read of the situation. Shug, welcome back to Mad Money.
Jim, thanks so much for your interest in Nextracker in our solar sector.
Of course. Now, you had another strong quarter, and what we want to do is just maybe get some of the key drivers of how this could be so much better than expected.
Well, first of all, Jim, the economics have never been stronger for solar. Solar is the lowest cost way to generate power on most of the planet, and we're seeing demand accelerate both in the U.S. and abroad. And for Nextracker specifically, we have differentiated products that make more energy, are lower cost to operate, reduce risk for owners. So we're just seeing a lot of very strong demand, which is why we've been able to set our guidance up for next year.
Now, the president today put in some tariffs for solar panels, and I wanted to know whether that's going to make it less economic for your clients to do solar.
The tariffs that were put in place don't impact our utility scale solar and are factored into our plan. So they're really more focused on the EV industry and other industries, Jim.
Okay, good to know, because I don't want to feel like that what's happening is whatever you do good, they take away. Certainly don't want that. Now, I also was looking at the backlog. It's at $4 billion now. What is it? I mean, that's an incredible growth since we saw you last. Tell us where you're getting that business from, because it's obviously not just the United States.
Right. That's correct, Jim. We're serving today almost 40 countries around the world, including the U.S. The U.S. is our strongest market, but we're seeing very strong growth in South America, Australia and Oceania, Africa, the Middle East, and India. And our backlog basically doubled in 2 years. A year ago, it was $2.6 billion. A year before that, it was about $1 billion. So now we're at $4 billion of backlog for the company. So what we're seeing is tremendous growth in the sector, and Nextracker's continued. We've had about a 30% compound annually growth for 5 or 6 years in a row up till now.
Any great use cases so that people understand exactly what you do, situations where we would normally not expect solar to kick in? Because you know what we always hear? Oh, solar's really good, but it can't be baseline. It's never going to be that. It's too intermittent. And it's like the way they like to slag the solar industry. I know when it's dark, a total eclipse of the sun, not your best day. But I have to admit that the idea that this thing is as intermittent as people say is just people trying to knock down solar.
You nailed it. Because battery costs have dropped so much, we're seeing batteries associated with most of the projects that we're involved with. And in fact, if you look at solar and solar plus storage, which really means batteries, if you look just in the United States, there's over 7,000 projects that have applied for interconnection to the grid. And in total, that amount of capacity is about 1,500 gigawatts, which is more than the 1,300 gigawatts of existing capacity in the US grid. So because the batteries allow the power to be there when you really need it, we're just seeing solar and solar plus storage dwarf legacy energy technology. In fact, there's zero new nuclear, zero new coal in the interconnection queue, and solar and storage have 25 times more interconnection positions to get hooked up to the grid than gas does.
Well, don't you think it's interesting that, for example, I took your numbers from your grid, which showed that maybe we could be 25% solar, 25% wind in 2030. Dan, everybody seems to think that you're being too aggressive. Why are you sticking by your guns on that?
Well, it's not just Nextracker, Jim. The U.S. Energy Information Administration, the government's know-how place for what's going to happen with energy, which historically has been very conservative on solar, has forecast a 26% annually compounding growth. And within 10 years, solar will be the #1 source of energy in the US grid. And that's borne out by our 5 to 6 years of 30% growth. So we see it's happening, and it's driven by fundamental economics, where solar is the lowest cost way to generate power on most places on Earth. In fact, the systems that we're seeing going in today are about 1/10 the cost of systems 15 years ago.
Jeez, that's
so
incredible.
It's really about technology and fundamental economics.
Okay, now I know you've got this great graph in one of your decks. Nextracker has proven solutions to mitigate severe weather. Weather events make up 62% of all solar losses. Hail, 54%. Then I read this article about how in a renewable energy world, not my usual publication, that you actually had a hailstorm in Texas that did damage some of your solar panels. Care to discuss that? Because I know that you taught me that hail is a huge problem for solar.
Yeah, we're seeing extreme weather on the rise across the world, and in what we call Hurricane and Hail Alley from Texas up through the Pacific Midwest. We had a customer about 3 or 4 years ago that had a hail event, and we developed a hail stowing technology. In this year, we saw on 27 projects that our hail stow technology was triggered. We talked to the owners of all those plants, and there's no reported damage on them. So you can't mitigate every situation every time, but there are technologies out there to help renewable energy perform in a wide variety of conditions.
Okay, now, how much of your business is because of companies like Microsoft and Alphabet, Google saying, look, guys, unless you use Nextracker or something like that, we're not going to give you the business. We're not going to put our data centers near you. How much are they recommenders for Nextracker?
Well, there's both a desire to have carbon-free and environmentally preferred generation, but there's also a need for power, Jim.
Right.
What we've seen in the United States is that power consumption was fairly flat for about 15 years, but it's really accelerated as the result of reindustrialization, electrification of appliances like vehicles, and data centers. And so these data centers, they need energy, and they want renewable energy because it's lower cost and more environmentally preferred. So we definitely see the growth of data centers as a huge demand generator, both for the grid and also for the renewable power sector.
Well, that's terrific, and it continues why I think that you're able to blow away the numbers. I like the conservative guidance. I don't want you to start raising numbers, get ahead of everybody. That's smart. Anyway, that's Dan Shugar. And Dan Shugar is the founder and CEO of Nextracker, NXT. Congratulations on a great quarter. You really blew the numbers away.
Thanks very much, Jim.
Absolutely. Mad Money's back after the break.